Colonel Sanders and the 1010th Mile. Chapter 1. The Check of Finality. October 1955. Corbin, Kentucky. An autumn wind carried a chill through the cracks of the old wooden house. Stirring a thin layer of dust on the dining table, Harland Sanders sat there, his eyes hidden behind black-rimmed glasses, staring fixedly at the envelope he had just torn open. Inside was a check from the United States government. His first Social Security check. Harland picked it up with large, calloused hands, hands that had once shoveled coal for steam engines, delivered babies for poor rural mothers, and breaded tons of chicken. The number printed on the paper was brutally clear, $105. He laughed, a dry, rasping sound, like gravel crunching under tires. At 65 years old, society had valued his life at $105 a month. That was the price of retirement. That was the world's silent message to him: you're old, Harland, you're done. Take this pocket change, sit on the porch, and wait to die. Just months prior, he was the owner of Sanders Court and Cafe, a popular roadside stop. He had even been commissioned as an honorary colonel by the governor of Kentucky for his contributions to the state's cuisine. But then, President Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act. The new Interstate 75 bypassed the town of Corbin, diverting the flow of traffic away from his restaurant. The tourists vanished overnight. Harland was forced to auction off his estate to pay his debts. After settling every last penny, he was broke. No restaurant, no staff, no assets. All that remained was a beat-up 1946 Ford, a worried wife, and a check for $105. Harland stood up and walked to the porch. He looked out at the empty road ahead. Most men his age would accept this fate. They would shrink away, living frugally day to day. But in Harland's chest, beneath the white shirt with the frayed collar, his heart did not beat to the rhythm of rest. It beat to the rhythm of indignation. He wasn't angry at the government, nor at the highway. He was angry because he felt he hadn't finished his mission yet. He remembered the aroma of the 11 herbs and spices. He remembered the smiles of customers biting into the crispy, juicy chicken he had spent a lifetime perfecting. "They think I'm washed up," Harland muttered, his voice thick with a southern drawl. "But I'm just getting started." He turned back into the house and went straight to the kitchen. He grabbed his old pressure cooker, a secret weapon he had modified to fry chicken faster without losing moisture. He gathered the remaining bags of spices, mixing them in a ratio known only to him. "Harland, what are you doing?" Claudia, his wife, asked anxiously as she saw her husband loading gear into the old Ford. Harland turned, straightening the black string tie at his collar. Even in poverty, he maintained the appearance of a gentleman. "Claudia," he said, eyes burning, "I can't live on this $105. I won't let this chicken recipe die in a kitchen corner. I'm going to sell it." "Sell it to whom? We don't have a restaurant anymore." "I'll sell it to other restaurants. I'll franchise it. I'll teach them how to cook it. And they'll pay me a commission on every piece of chicken sold." It was a crazy idea at the time. Franchising was still a new and strange concept. But Harland didn't care. He turned the key. The engine of the 1946 Ford groaned, then roared to life. At 65, when most people are preparing their wills, Harland Sanders began writing the first chapter of his legend. Chapter 2. The Cold Shoulder. America in the 1950s was vast and dusty. Harland drove along the old state highways, avoiding the flashy new interstates he despised. His plan was simple: walk into a restaurant, offer to cook chicken for the owner and staff to taste. If they liked it, he would franchise the recipe. In return, they would pay him 4 cents, later 5 cents, for every piece of chicken sold. But reality was far more brutal. The first attempt was at a small diner in Tennessee. The owner, a large man in a grease-stained apron, looked at Harland as if he were an escapee from a mental asylum. "Hey, old man," he said, wiping the counter. "Anyone can make fried chicken. Why should I pay for your recipe? Are you trying to sell me chicken skin?" "It's not the skin," Harland explained patiently. "It's the blend of herbs. Let me cook it for you. Get out before I call the cops." That was the first rejection. Harland quietly packed up his gear and walked to his car. He marked a tally in a small notebook. 1. The days that followed were a loop of humiliation. He slept in the backseat of his car because he couldn't afford a motel. Every morning, he woke up with aching bones, numb from the bone-chilling cold of frosty nights. He shaved and washed up in the restrooms of roadside gas stations, trying to keep his white suit as spotless as possible. He understood that image was everything. He wasn't a homeless old man peddling goods, he was Colonel Sanders. A southern gentleman with a premium culinary secret. Even on an empty stomach, he walked with his back straight. Rejection number 50. A restaurant owner in Indiana tasted the chicken. He chewed, swallowed, then shrugged. It's all right, but too much pepper. My customers won't like it. It's not just pepper, Harland argued. It's the balance. Thanks, but no, the door is over there. Harland got back in the car. The Ford was starting to show signs of wear. Just like his spirit, there were nights he parked under the starry sky of the Midwest, gnawing on a piece of dry bread bought with the last pennies of his Social Security check. Loneliness was the most terrifying part. At his age, he should have been surrounded by grandchildren. Instead, he was wandering like a ghost, chasing a dream everyone called a delusion. What the hell are you doing, Harland? He asked himself in the rearview mirror. The face looking back was gaunt. Hair white as snow. You're a failure. A magnificent failure. But then, the memory of the chicken's flavor pulled him back. He believed in it. It was the only thing he had. If he gave up, he was admitting his life was only worth $105. Chapter 3, the number 1009. Winter struck. The roads were blanketed in white snow. Harland's car had no proper heater. He had to wrap himself in blankets while driving. The number of rejections climbed into the hundreds. 200, 300, 500. Every rejection was a knife to his pride. Some were polite, some were rude, some even laughed at his white suit and black string tie, calling him an old clown. At a restaurant in Ohio, Harland almost succeeded. The owner loved the chicken, but his wife shook her head. We can't change the menu now. Too risky. Harland pleaded. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was begging. Just try it for a week. I'll provide the spices for free for the first week. Sorry, Colonel, no is no. He stepped out into the snow. The cold wind whipped his face, but it wasn't as cold as his heart. He had crossed 4 states, knocked on hundreds of doors, and the result was a perfect 0. There was a moment when Harland stopped his car by a cliffside. He looked down into the deep abyss. Physical exhaustion, financial dread, and the crushing weight of age pressed down on his shoulders. The thought of letting go crossed his mind. Just drive off the edge, and it all ends. No more hunger, no more cold, no more shaking heads. But then, he looked at his notebook. The tally marks of rejection were dense. He flipped back to the first page, where he had scrawled, "Persistence beats resistance." He remembered his mother, the widow who taught him to cook at age 6 so she could work to feed the family. He remembered the days of hard labor starting at age 12. He had never had an easy life. Why should the final chapter be easy? I'm not done, he shouted into the void. His voice echoed through the mountains. I am not done. He turned the car around and continued the journey. Rejection number 800, rejection number 900, rejection number 1000. 1.000 rejections. Imagine having someone say no to your face 1.000 times. For most people, 10 times is too much. 100 times is madness. But 1.000 times? That is a different realm of faith. By this point, Harland Sanders wasn't just selling fried chicken anymore. He was peddling his soul and his belief. He had become numb to the pain. Each shake of a head no longer saddened him, it only fueled his determination to find the single yes hiding out there. And then, the destined number arrived, 1009. It was a rainy afternoon in Salt Lake City, Utah. Harland walked into the Dewdrop Inn, a restaurant owned by an old acquaintance named Pete Harmon. He had hoped for friendship, but Pete was a sharp businessman. Friendship didn't buy a spot on the menu. Harland went into the kitchen again. He worked with the precision of an artist and the urgency of a man on death row. He managed the oil temperature, breading each piece of chicken perfectly. When the plate of chicken was placed on the table, Pete Harmon tasted it. He was silent. Harland held his breath. His hands trembled beneath the table. Pete took a second bite, then a third. He turned to look at his wife. "Honey," Pete said, "this is the best chicken I've ever eaten." Harland felt like his chest was going to burst, but he kept his composure. "So, do you want to sell it, Pete?" Pete Harmon nodded. "Let's do it, Colonel." After 1.009 rejections, after 2 years of wandering the roads of America, after 1,000 nights sleeping in a car, the first nod. Chapter 4. The fire spreads. Pete Harmon's nod was a spark landing in a field of dry grass. Pete's restaurant sales exploded thanks to the new dish. The people of Utah lined up to taste Kentucky Fried Chicken, a name suggested by a local sign painter. Pete's revenue increased by 75%. News spread like wildfire. Other restaurant owners, those who had once rejected him, or those who had never met him, began to call. Harland Sanders no longer needed to knock on doors. But he didn't stop. At 70 years old, he worked harder than he did in his youth. He drove across America, not to beg, but to inspect quality. He wore his signature white suit, carried his cane, and became the living icon of the brand. He slept less, but smiled more. He was strict with every batch of chicken. If a franchise made the gravy incorrectly, he was known to pour the entire pot down the drain and force them to make it again, right in front of the customers. "Do it right, or don't do it at all," he would bellow. By 1964, less than 10 years after starting with that $105 check, Harland Sanders had over 600 franchises across the US and Canada. At the age of 74, he sold his stake in the U.S. company for $2 million, equivalent to about $18 million today, but remained the brand ambassador and quality controller. Chapter 5. An Ageless Legacy. Years later, as a millionaire and a global cultural icon, people still saw Colonel Sanders in his white suit, moving tirelessly. In a television interview, the host, a young, ambitious man, asked him, "Colonel, why didn't you retire at 65? You could have lived quietly on that $105. Harland Sanders, his hair now completely white, his eyes still sharp behind his glasses, smiled. He looked straight into the camera, as if looking at the millions of discouraged souls out there. "Young man," he said, his voice deep and warm, "a human being is like a piece of iron. If you let it sit, it will rust and rot. But if you use it, grind it, sharpen it, it becomes shiny and sharp. At 65, I realized I still had too much to give. Retirement is the beginning of death. I chose life." He paused, then delivered the line that became immortal. "I only have 2 rules. 1. Do all you can. And 2. Do the best you can. Age? That's just a number counting how long you've been on Earth, not a measure of your ability. Blank, underscore, blank." Epilogue. Harland Sanders passed away at the age of 90. By the time he died, the KFC empire had reached across the globe with thousands of stores. But the greatest legacy he left behind wasn't the fried chicken, nor the secret recipe. His greatest legacy is the story of the white-haired man in the beat-up Ford. A story that reminds us, you can be broke at 65. You can be rejected 1.009 times. You can be written off by the world as finished. But as long as you haven't crossed your own name off the list, the game isn't over. Success has no expiration date, and dreams have no retirement age. If you are feeling stuck, look in your pocket. You might not have $105, but you have today. And for Harland Sanders, just one new day and an old belief were enough to change the world. Stand up, knock on the next door. Who knows, that might be door number 1010. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss any meaningful stories.